Welcome back, Year 5. Today we'll be reading Chapter 2 of Fantastic Mr. Fox. Our focus is to analyze characters. We'll be describing the physical and inner traits of characters in a story and using evidence from the story to support our reasoning about the character traits. So we're justifying our answers. So, what are character traits? Well, character traits can be broken down into two categories: outside traits and inside traits. Or, the outside traits can also be called physical traits, the way you would describe the body of the person, versus the inner traits, which are the character or personality traits, which describe what they're like on the inside. Now, physical traits are the things that you can see. For example, what do they look like? What color is their hair? How tall are they? Are they skinny? Are they fat? Versus the inner traits, which are things you cannot see. They're personality traits. So, is the person kind? Are they sneaky? Are they brave? Are they cowardly? Those are the kinds of things that are inner traits. So, they're the things that you can't see. Today we'll be looking at both types of traits and we'll be analyzing characters to decide what traits they have on the outside and on the inside, and we'll be justifying our choices. To help organize our thoughts, we're going to be using this graphic organizer. It says character traits, words, actions, and feelings. So basically, we're going to be using this to map out the traits that we've identified on the inside of the characters, so their inner personality traits, versus their outside or physical traits. We'll also be putting the justification or the evidence from the story inside those boxes. Well, let's get to it. Yesterday we read chapter 1, which introduced the three farmers to us: Bogus, Boonce, and Bean. Today we're starting at chapter 2 called Mr. Fox. I'm just going to predict that this chapter is going to be introducing our main character, who clearly, based on the title of the book as well, is Mr. Fox. On a hill above the valley there was a wood. In the wood there was a huge tree. Under the tree there was a hole. In the hole lived Mr. Fox and Mrs. Fox and their four small foxes. As we can see there, we have an image of them, and they look quite happy, like a happy family based on that picture. Every evening, as soon as it got dark, Mr. Fox would say to Mrs. Fox, "Well, my darling, what shall it be this time? A plump chicken from Bogus? A duck or a goose from Boots? Or a nice turkey from Bean?" And when Mrs. Fox had told him what she wanted, Mr. Fox would creep down into the valley in the darkness of the night and help himself. Well, I think we're learning quite a bit about Mr. Fox from that page. Let's keep all that information in mind. Bogus and Boonce and Bean knew very well what was going on, and it made them wild with rage. They were not men who liked to give anything away. Less still did they like anything to be stolen from them. So every night each of them would take his shotgun and hide in a dark place somewhere on his own farm, hoping to catch the robber. This has actually told us quite a bit about those three farmers. But Mr. Fox was too clever for them. He always approached a farm with the wind blowing in his face, and this meant that if any man were lurking in the shadows ahead, the wind would carry the smell of that man to Mr. Fox's nose from far away. Thus, if Mr. Bogus was hiding behind his chicken house number 1, Mr. Fox would smell him out from 50 yards off and quickly change direction, heading for chicken house number 4 at the other end of the farm. "Dang and blast that lousy beast!" cried Bogus. "I'd like to rip his guts out," said Boonce. "He must be killed!" cried Bean. "But how?" said Bogus. "How on earth can we catch that blighter?" Now on our next page, we have a lovely illustration, and I think this is a good time to pause and really think about what we've learned about these characters. In that image, I see one of the farmers, and I see Mr. Fox, as well as a bunch of eyes peeking out from what must be one of the chicken houses. Now, so far, I think I've learned that Mr. Fox is quite sneaky and quite smart. He was able to determine which way he should run and which chicken house he should go to based on what he smelled, and he thought this all out ahead of time. The farmers, on the other hand, I've learned are quite violent. When they weren't able to catch Mr. Fox, they all got so angry that they started saying things like they should rip his guts out. That sounds, I don't know, like full of a lot of rage. So let's keep these things in mind and see what else we learn about these characters on the last page of this chapter. Bean picked his nose delicately with a long finger. "I have a plan," he said. "You've never had a decent plan yet," said Bounce. "Shut up and listen," said Bean. "Tomorrow night we will all hide just outside the hole where the fox lives. We will wait there until he comes out. Then, bang! Bang, bang, bang!" "Very clever," said Bounce. "But first we shall have to find the hole." "My dear Bounce, I've already found it," said the crafty Bean. "It's up in the wood on the hill. It's under a huge tree." All right. Well, I want you to think for a moment. What have we learned about these characters? We're going to start to map that out into our graphic organizers. So here's that graphic organizer I showed you earlier. It gives us space to record inner traits or personality traits, as well as outer traits or physical traits, the things we can see. I'm going to show you an example of how I would map out the character traits of Mr. Fox. Later on, you are going to be picking one of the farmers to record information about. So the first thing I did was I started with the outside traits because those are really the easiest ones. I said that based on the illustrations, I can see that Mr. Fox looks like a typical fox. He is furry and orange with a long tail. The text doesn't give any other details about his appearance yet. So I had to go based on the illustrations and the cover image to come up with my description of what he is like on the outside, his physical traits. Now, please bear in mind, physical traits are not nearly as important as inner traits, the personality traits. Let me fill out that box and let's see how I did it and what evidence I used. Alrighty, for Mr. Fox's inner traits, this is what I said. Mr. Fox is clever. He is described this way because he is able to outsmart the farmers. Mr. Fox is also a caring father and husband because he puts himself at risk to feed his family. Although he is a good father, Mr. Fox is also mischievous because he gets the food for his family by stealing rather than working hard. So these are the inner traits I picked out: clever, caring, and mischievous. Would you agree? Would you say you saw evidence of that? Well, in my explanation in my graphic organizer, I actually put my evidence to support my choices. Let's highlight that evidence that I picked. Now, in red, you can see the evidence that I used to support my answers. How did I know he was clever? I know he's clever because he's described that way since he is able to outsmart the farmers. It actually says, I think on page 18, it says directly, he is clever. So that's how I picked that one. What about caring? How did I know he was caring? I know he's caring because he puts himself at risk to feed his family. That's my evidence. That's something he did in the text. And what about mischievous? How do I know that? Well, because he gets the food for his family by stealing rather than working hard. That's something else he did in the text. So my evidence is the actions of the character. Their actions tell me what they are like on the inside. Now it's time for your independent task. You are going to complete one of these graphic organizers for one of the farmers. You can choose whether you want to do Bogus, Bounce, or Bean. Keep in mind, a lot of their inner traits are similar. Their outer traits, however, are quite different. So to remember their outer traits, their physical traits, you might need to think back to or rewatch chapter 1. I want you to write in full sentences and support your statements for inner traits with evidence from the text. Oh no, I see a spelling mistake there. Unfortunately, I can't fix it now. Do you see my spelling mistake? I put 2 D's in evidence, so please just ignore that. But make sure that you do support your inner traits or your choice of inner traits with evidence from the text. When you've done that, as usual, you're going to take a picture of your work and send it to me. Oh, I should also mention that you're going to need to record this into your notebook. I don't expect anyone to print this out, so you can just write these traits into your notebook. You could do it in a paragraph form, or you could copy the graphic organizer if you like.